Good evening, workshoppers. After a little bit of a break for the holidays there, I'm back in action. Westmarch Workshop is returning. Sorry about the break, but we've got some things to talk about. We got some cool like little Diablo news and tidbits, to go over the last couple of weeks. Again, sorry for a bit of a break there. Holiday season's always a little bit rough on my schedule. This one was, tougher than most, but things have settled down, so can get back up in there for the podcast. And well, it's always an interesting time of year. You got Christmas, you got New Year's, but also you have the celebration, of the anniversary of the franchise itself, as the original statement from Blizzard said that the original Diablo is released on December 31st, 1996. But then now, as I was going through and researching this, to go through and like post an article about it, it seems now they've kind of slightly changed their tune and are now saying that the actual anniversary is January 3rd. So if you go looking around like Wikipedia and a bunch of other places, it's all January 3rd, but if you check their anniversary site, it still says December 31st, 1996. So it's somewhere. You got a couple of days. It's 4 days to celebrate. The Diablo series right there, which I guess we should have seen as a predisposition or a precognition of them announcing Diablo 4. Of course, Diablo 4 confirmed. But yeah, it's and of course with Diablo turning 23, it's been really interesting. Like just kind of like going back over the years and the patches. I never played the original Diablo all that much, but of course I was big into Diablo 2, and it's just so strange thinking about like this is a game that people have been playing for 23 years, or even with Diablo 2, 20 years, and hell, I mean, Diablo 3, you're talking 8 years coming up soon. This has been, a huge chunk of time. Some people have, like, literally grown up with this game. I know, like, for myself, like, I was still in high school when I started playing Diablo 2. And I guess I was in middle school when I played Diablo 1 on the PlayStation, but didn't care for it all that much. And it's just it's cool to go through and look back on all like the little things that like the game has kind of impacted. For me and my friends, whenever you give directions and you say east, it's always followed by always into the east, and just like those little things that have come, kind of like the zeitgeist. Or even if my friends like really don't play Diablo that much anymore, it's still, there's like the little quotes and things, or just the excitement from others that hadn't played Diablo 3 in literally years, that it's like, oh shit man, Diablo 4, tell me everything that you learned. It's great. It's cool. It's just like that bonding experience that we as a community can kind of come together and celebrate. This awesome franchise that we wouldn't be sitting here talking, or you listening, or for those in chat talking about this if it hadn't come out all those many lovely years ago. But to celebrate it, of course, we do have the Darkening of Tristram event that is in Diablo 3. That started back on the 3rd, and it does run through the 31st. So you still have plenty of time if you haven't tried it, or if you're just missing a couple of achievements. You've got till the end of the month. So this is being recorded on the 8th, Wednesday the 8th. You still have, a couple of weeks, quite a few, three and a half weeks left in order to go through and complete it. So plenty of time. And I think the one achievement that people have the most issue with is the eerie red glow, clouds your vision, and because it says that you have to beat the Lord of Terror with a level 1 character, but it is, you have to create a new level 1 character. You can't use like a rebirth character or someone that's been sitting around as a level 1 character. You have to create an all new level 1 character and beat Diablo. You don't have to do any of the events. You don't have to go out of your way to do any of the other achievements while you're doing it, though killing any of the elites or uniques that spawn throughout the labyrinth will help you out in the grand scheme of things. But don't feel that you have to, play it true to form. You can fully deck out your character with Paragon, equipment that you've dropped to level 1 with like Gem of Ease and things of that nature. So you can fully gear out your character and then just, like cut through it like it's nothing, just to go through and get the achievement in the Butcher Pet, for completing it. It does have to be done in one go, but it isn't all that long. I think, especially if you're using like a fully decked out character, you can do it in under an hour. Probably only like 30-45 minutes, if even that, to go through and finish it. And it's just, if you get disconnected or if you leave the game, you do have to start from scratch. So if you before you beat Diablo, if you have to log off or you get disconnected, you do have to create an all new level 1 character, because it has to be done in a single shot. And that's one of the ones that I've seen a lot of questions about, and the most confusion over, what do I have to do to finish this achievement. Other than that, the most time-consuming one is just, making sure that you kill all of the unique monsters, that spawn. But they all have set levels that they spawn on, so you can go through and do a search for the ones that you might be missing. So you can just quickly, teleport or rush down to that particular level of the labyrinth and look around. And then if they're not there, you just create a new game. That's actually the only achievement that I still have on it. I've got like 3 monsters I have left to do. I think last year I didn't really have too much of a chance to go through and exploring it, but this year I'm going to try and put some time into it here, over the weekend to finish that one off. Since it's not that much of a time, time sink in order to do. But otherwise, we also have within Diablo 3, it's about that time for the PTR. And I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen any rumblings of the PTR this week, given most of the Blizzard staff came back last week. That this I believe this would be the actual week that they would start the PTR, based on kind of like the average length of time between the season start to the launch of the PTR. Though the 2-week vacation that Blizzard kind of shuts down at the end of December, beginning of January, would push that back a little bit. We we just might get a longer season, given that season 18 was actually a shorter season than we came to expect. We could see them filling up the time and making season 19 a little bit longer. But I definitely think, like, probably within the next 2 weeks, I say the next 2 weeks, like going through and saying like the 21st would probably be the latest that they would start the PTR, if they're still looking for that roughly 3-month time frame. Especially when you take that with just some of the comments that Matthew Cinderquist, the executive producer for Diablo 3 now, was stating that they want to make it a slightly longer PTR, that a week was nice but maybe not enough in order to fully test out everything or test the bugs, especially with the level of changes that they're going and doing. We can kind of see that with season 19, where they nerfed the Pandemonium event, like particularly the Angels and a lot of the other higher level ones, to reduce their damage. But people still have Barbarians and Crusaders have had solo 150 clears, particularly because of that the 500 kill streak with the Angels, being able to kill the bosses, or even beyond that, of everything in between, being able to cut through normals and elites to get their progress up to the boss, so that way they can spawn the Angels and then just go to town. It's the season 19 is probably going to be remembered as like the season that power creep went insane. And I wonder, with no matter what they do for the future seasons, if anything will be as kind of like game changing or game breaking as the season 19 Pandemonium buff, where you're able to have characters that have less gear and like 6,000 less Paragon than the non-seasonal characters, but still able to do higher level clears. And I think it was I think the episode like shortly after BlizzCon, when I had Thunderclaw on, how we were going through and talking, will this be the season that we have like a 2-player 150 clear, let alone a solo? And well, here we are. where just that buff is just so strong, and that's even after it was nerfed. It was more powerful in the PTR, but would we have been able to have nerfed it further if we had a slightly longer PTR in order to go through and play around and test these things? So I expect that whatever seasonal buff that we get for Season 20 and beyond is going to be a little bit better balanced and not quite as overpowered as this buff is. That being said, I've really enjoyed the Pandemonium buff because it gives you a little bit more engagement in your gameplay. It's not just passive. You're actually, when you're going through, you want to like try and pull that last mob to the rift exit, so that way you can get that last hit, then jump in, do some sort of movement skill, what have you, so that way you can hopefully tag another mob, keep it going, so that way you can keep the buff rolling as you continue through the progress of the level. Or of course it functions very differently at the higher end. Where you're actually like stacking up mob kills and such, and are very careful about how you complete the kills. Or when in between episode 176 and this episode, there were some bugs. There were some people that were going through and using some exploits where they were able to carry kill streaks from outside of rifts into rifts, because they would go into a multiplayer game, but only one person would go into the greater rift. The other people would go through and get like would get a couple of kills, or at least a whole bunch of monsters grouped together at low life. The person in the rift would teleport out, teleport to them, kill them, get the buff, go back into the rift, or get a couple of stacks, go back into the rift, kill someone, trigger trigger like the 15 or the 50 greater rift, or the kill streak, and then kill off everything that they had on the screen. And they were doing like solo 150s in like just a handful of minutes. Like they were really exploiting the system to push that to god awful levels. And that of course has been fixed. People have been banned, and people's clears have been rolled back. So there you go. It's one of those ones where it's like, definitely every time that anyone has used any type of game mechanic that they take something out of the rift into the rift, or with the blood goblin in the rift to out of the rift, it's always been labeled an exploit. It's always constituted bans, and your leaderboard cleareds removed. So it's really strange to me that people would still go through, find this, and then use the exploit for a clear, or even just going through and streaming it. It seems so weird. It's just like they're tempting fate. Like they want this they almost like want to get banned, or they just want the recognition. Their 15 minutes of fame for going through and doing it. Who's to say for that? But yeah, I expect next week or the week after we'll probably go through and get the season 20 PTR. And it had me thinking, well, what are the next classes going to be, since they seem to be doing 2 a season? We'll have a confirmation of that pattern once we have a pattern. Right now we only have the one season where they did 2 classes. I expect Barbarian, just because the Barbarian community has been very vocal in going through and wanting buffs, and well, they got some really significant buffs, and they haven't even got their class set yet. We've had the last 2 seasons have come around, with new items and some buffs to the Barbarian class in general. And I guess let's just go for a turkey and get the 3 in a row. So we'll just have 3 patches of Barbarian buffs and then get it done and over with. They're, because of how insane the Crusader is, they're not quite the top solo class, though when you factor in like group play and such, they definitely are one of the more popular classes at the high end. A huge variety of builds. And they've gotten pretty much everything that they've ever wanted, and now it just makes sense to just finish it off. Just while Barbarians are kind of like at their height, just give them their new class set. Let them continue to go through and ride that out. Before moving on to anything else. And so for me, at least, my estimation that we're going to have Barbarians. So what's going to be that second class? And when I was looking through the leaderboards to kind of get a feel of where everyone's sitting, I noticed that the Necromancer and the Witch Doctor are the two that are kind of like have fallen far behind, particularly the Necromancer. Though I don't think that the Necromancer is quite as bad as it would seem when you're looking at the leaderboards, because I think that it's just, now that people have an option to play something for like a Rift Guardian killer or what have you that's not a Necromancer, that they're going that. It's been way too many seasons of Necromancer dominance, and people are just tired. They want to play something else. So I think a lot of those high, top end players are just playing other classes, or they're playing Path of Exile. And so even though the Necromancers hasn't even cleared like a 130 on season, I think that's more so is just because there are fewer better players that are going through and playing the Necromancer than to actually say that it is it's like 12 Greater Rift levels behind even a Witch Doctor. But but just kind of like looking at those numbers, I probably would guess maybe a necromancer class set in order to go through and get them up there, or a Witch Doctor, just because Witch Doctors have just been in a weird place for a very long time. Usually relegated to support builds or having a decent clear, like a mob killing build, but then because of the issues at the higher end with area damage and such, that they, people looked for other builds that could do it, maybe not even necessarily better, but with less lag and area damage triggering and such, that the Witch Doctor had to do in order to be effective. There was a lot of alternatives, to say before we had the Star Pack Bazooka Wizard, that there was a lot of other classes that could do it, as well as some of the alternatives, but because of area damage or just server lag, that it was the game limitations, not the class limitations, that were actually keeping them, from being some of the top choices. And I'm not quite sure what they could do. I know, like, my personal theory was for the Witch Doctor, bring back a Zombie Bears set. That would be awesome, given that was one of the top builds, back in Classic, and then was a popular build for Witch Doctors, a little bit into Reaper, before class sets really started, gaining the dominance that we're all used to now. Or just to maybe bring the Necromancer a little bit back in line with the love that the other classes have been receiving. A Necromancer set, which has to be Revive. If it's not Revive, then then Revive is just going to go down as probably the worst use of developer resources in a Diablo game like ever, because of how much time it took to develop the Necromancer class, specifically because of the Revive skill, and then it never getting used. And it still makes me cry. Just going through and thinking about that, how such an iconic skill just... I just couldn't compete. And I think a lot of that has to do with just it's odd, especially once you get to the high level play, like those. You can use anything to like clear Torment 16 nowadays, but when the skill has such a limited timer, and when you start like getting into the high level pushes, mobs don't die quickly. It takes a while to kill things, and so if it takes longer than the lifespan of the revive mob, then you're screwed. Because if you revive the mobs and they didn't kill anything to replace themselves, then you're always perpetually falling behind. So it could be better if they say, took the time limit off of revive and they didn't expire. Or like Diablo 2, which I actually have been playing a little bit, over the holidays, where revive just has ridiculously long duration. You're talking like minutes instead of seconds in terms of its duration, and it was a lot of looking at a lot of the decisions in Diablo 3 that they made to separate it from Diablo 2. I kind of get a feeling of some of the things I would like to see going into Diablo 4, and it's kind of a split opinion. I think the implementation of cooldowns is good, because it gives a feeling of like this is a really powerful skill, like Frozen Orb in Diablo 2. It did have an internal cooldown that you couldn't surpass, So that way it prevented you from completely flooding the screen with frozen orbs, unless you were a Rift Kicker, which is an assassin build. But it kind of says that this is really powerful, and so it has a cooldown. But then the implementation of like 2-minute cooldowns, these really long things, just made cooldown reduction way too powerful of a stat, because these 2-minute cooldowns, in order to gain a use on your bar, had to be super powerful. But other things are sitting in the realm of like 5 or 10-second cooldowns, things that you can use repeatedly in combat, and you don't really feel too bad if you misclicked it, or if you misuse the skill. Like, obviously you'll feel punished, but not as punished, if you to the point of I'm never going to use this 2-minute cooldown because I need to use it when I actually need to use it. Oh, this elite is really powerful, but what if there's another elite after him? I'm gonna save it, and then you never end up using the skill. Versus if it's like 10 second, you'll be like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. And if I miss it, misclick, or I don't line it up with the bus properly, it'll be up again before the fight's over. And so it gives a separation between, it gives a certain skill gap between a good player and an okay player, while still keeping the vibe of this is like really powerful. And so it had to have a cooldown instead of like a resource cost, or a cooldown and a resource cost. That now I'm like super tangenting off of PTR to development choices between D2 and Diablo 3. Well, yeah, I would like to hear what your thoughts are. Are we going to go through and see a PTR sometime soon for season 20? What your expectations are? What are they going to do to follow up season 19? Like we've seen a much greater level of variance in terms of the actual seasonal themes, and I'll be interested in seeing what they do next. If it's going to be anywhere near as impactful, not necessarily as game breaking, but as impactful as what the season 19 buff is. Because like it or hate it, you have to admit season 19 was definitely a game changer, and that Pandemonium buff really, really changed things up. Especially at the higher level, or just going through leveling and having fun. It brought a lot of my friends into the game, and we really enjoyed the season opener. And now I hope that I can actually get them back for season 20, because they're all like Monster Hunter players, and the new Monster Hunter game I think comes out tomorrow. Ice World, or Iceborne, or something ice in Monster Hunter. That they're all going to be going through and playing. And from what they were telling me, they usually drop like the first like free DLC like a couple of weeks after launch. And the way that the seasons are kind of like lining up, we should get season 20 sometime early February. And it was just like, well, shit. So they're going to drop like the Monster Hunter DLC right when season 20 starts. But you guys have to stop being dicks, and you have to come and play Diablo with me. And well, we'll see how that works out. And then, like, kind of like the one final thing that I wanted to end the episode on. So, if you don't really care too much about lore, but if you've been listening to me speak for any number of episodes, I don't think that that's possible. There's a thread that I see that keeps coming up, keeps coming up like a train of thought about Adria, and I see it on the forums, I see it in Discord, I see it on Reddit. And people want Lilith to be the good guy. And they're like going through and saying, it's like, oh, well, she created the Nephilim. It's like just assuming that she's the bad guy, she's probably going to end up being the good guy and all other type of stuff. No. People, give it a rest. Lilith is not going to be the good guy. Lilith is dag nasty evil. It's just a fact. Sure, she created the Nephilim. Sure, she is our quote-unquote mother. But Lilith sees the Nephilim not as her children, but as a weapon. Nothing more than a tool. Lilith wants to enslave the Nephilim, so that way she can go and just rule over all of creation. She wants to use the Nephilim as her own personal army, so that way she can beat heaven, she can beat hell, and she's going to be the sole ruler of everything and everyone. She could care less, or she couldn't care less about any human, any Nephilim. And I mean, we even see that when she was basically introduced as a character even though she was in Diablo 2 and she was like the mother of Andariel and the originator of like the succubi, and that's all of course been retconned. But when she was actually a character in the Sin War trilogy, she had the Edarim, Edarim, I think, Edyrem, I think is how it's spelled, and she helped unlock their Nephilim potential. After she found her way back to Sanctuary, she was able to manipulate the World Stone because Arias had made the World Stone lock down the Nephilim power within humans. She went through and sneakily made some slight alterations to it to allow humans to regain their Nephilim powers. And so she manipulated Odyssean and some others into creating this cult, this movement called the Iterim, so that way they would all be like awakened Nephilim. And you went on to use them to try and overthrow, like the Church of the Triune and the Cathedral of Light, the Veiled Prophet, so that way, she could rule over everything with kind of like the shadow war between, her father, Mephisto, and the other primevals, as well as Arias. And then when Odyssean finally realized that he was being manipulated and told her to screw off, she attacked him. She went through and she'd rather see all of the Nephilim die than them not listen to her. She tried to kill them, but she was defeated and fought back against. And so she went and took control of the Church of the Triune while opposing of her brother, and then used the influence in the Triune to try and kill the Nephilim. Like she was not having any of it. She does not care about us. She is not going to be the good guy. She is going to go through and she's going to sow strife. She's going to sow panic. She's going to make it so that way the humans of Sanctuary have no choice but to submit themselves to her. So that way she can then use them as a weapon, go beat down Heaven's Door again, destroy all of them, then go back to hell, overthrow the primevals before they fully regenerated, and rule over all. She wants to be the ruler of everything. If you think that she's going to be, the good guy, if that she's going to come back and be a nice, loving, caring mother, oh, you've got some harsh reality coming your way. That is not who she is in any way, shape, or form. Like at the end of it, she is still a demon. And even her love for Arias, is twisted to that of what a demon would be. When she originally found the Nephilim and saw their potential, she killed everybody and left Arias alive because, hey, Arias, I'll give you a chance to rule at my side. With the Nephilim. And then when he said no, she was like, okay, I'm going to kill you too. Their love is, anthem to a demon. They don't really understand what that is. So even the love that Lilith felt was, twisted in a corrupted way, towards Arias. And I this kind of goes back to that episode, that Thunderclaw was on, and we talked about like how Arias might play into this since he was also in the opening cinematic for just a brief second. I could easily see us going into hell and freeing Arias, and having him help us to overthrow Lilith. Especially if like the World Stone comes back into play, and that's going to be what Lilith is kind of using as her base of power, and why she might be a threat as opposed to the primevals. Since she's a daughter of one, she is going to be powerful, but she's still a step below the primevals themselves, even the lesser ones like Asmodan or Belial. How can she potentially be a world threat? Well, one, the Nephilim from Diablo 3 could be dead, and no one that powerful could have come about. Or the World Stone might have returned or have been salvaged in some fashion and is limiting the power of humanity to not quite get to that level ever again. And we might need like Arias to come and help out, and so we go and free him. But then after Lilith is killed, Arias is like, you all are the reason why I've suffered for the last 3,000 years. You guys are literally the reason why I was given to hell and tortured by Mephisto for the last 3 millennium. I hate you all, slightly less than Lilith, so now that she's dead, you all suffer. And so then Arias is instantly like the main bad of the next expansion, of these planned expansions for Diablo 3. That's at least my thoughts. That's what I'm thinking. And then also, I think I talked about this a little bit on the last episode of Dread, but the other thing is the whole Rathma leaked identity, which until Blizzard confirms it, I still refuse to believe it, because that is not Rathma's character. It does not feel like him. It does not sound like him. And if that is the actual decision that Blizzard is going with in order to like destroy his character, I'm going to be sorely disappointed in the story already. That's just my take. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. Where you think the story might go, or do you, even after that, do you still think that Lilith is going to be the good guy to go through and save us all? Is she going to be the one to fight off Diablo alongside us? Is Blizzard going through and saying that all of this darkness and strife on Sanctuary has only increased since Lilith came back, is just a false flag operation to make us try and turn against our loving, dearest old mother? Yeah. And then, of course, let me know what you think might be coming in Season 20. What a seasonal buff that you might like to see, or what classes you think might be next. And you can send, any of those comments and such over at westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. Again, that email is westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. And, of course, you can follow the show at the WM Workshop on Twitter. You can follow me at Nineball, at NineballGamer on Twitter. Even though the person that has Nineball hasn't tweeted, they tweeted for the first time, I think, in 3 years or something like that. I really wish that there was some way that you could get the names of those inactive accounts. But I guess with so much time in history now of being Nineball Gamer, it'd be hard to switch over to just Nineball. But neither here nor there. But yeah, go through, now that the holidays are over, should be back to the regular streaming schedule. You can follow me here every other Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. You can also go through, catch the non-live shows on iTunes, Stitcher. The video uploads are over on YouTube on the BlizzPro channel. If you haven't been able to find them there, you can also find pretty much all of the Diablo news that you'll need over at diablo.blizzpro.com. That's run by the lovely Dread Scythe. We're in game with the BlizzPro clan. There's lots of open spots. You can also join our in-game community, the Westmarch Workshop. But yeah, go through. Stay tuned. We've got some new stuff going through and coming in the new year. I want to continue to go through and try and have special guests on more often for the show, and I think we're going to go through and start that with the next episode. So 178, I'll probably tweet that out once I have confirmed for the guest. But I think you all will like it. I think you all will like it. So here's to the new year. Here's to 23 years of Diablo, and here's to catching you all in 2 weeks for episode 178. And so thank you very much for going through and joining me. And I will catch you all next time.